أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ثم يتوب الله من بعد ذلك على من يشاء، والله غفور رحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنما المشركون نجس فلا يقربوا المسجد الحرام بعد عامهم هذا، وإن خفتم عيلة فسوف يغنيكم الله من فضله إن شاء، إن الله عليم حكيم. قاتلوا الذين لا يؤمنون بالله ولا باليوم الآخر ولا يحرمون ما حرم الله ورسوله ولا يدينون دين الحق من الذين أوتوا الكتاب حتى يعطوا الجزية عن يد وهم صاغرون. وقالت اليهود عزير ابن الله وقالت النصارى المسيح ابن الله، ذلك قولهم بأفواههم يضاهئون قول الذين كفروا من قبل قاتلهم الله أنى يؤفكون. اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم، وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا إلها واحدا لا إله إلا هو سبحانه عما يشركون. يريدون أن يطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم ويأبى الله إلا أن يتم نوره ولو كره الكافرون. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن كثيرا من الأحبار والرهبان ليأكلون أموال الناس بالباطل ويصدون عن سبيل الله، والذين يكنزون الذهب والفضة ولا ينفقونها في سبيل الله فبشرهم بعذاب أليم، يوم يحمى عليها في نار جهنم فتكوى بها جباههم وجنوبهم وظهورهم، هذا ما كنزتم لأنفسكم فذوقوا ما كنتم تكنزون. إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 شهرا في كتاب الله يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها 4 حرم، ذلك الدين القيم فلا تظلموا فيهن أنفسكم وقاتلوا المشركين كافة كما يقاتلونكم كافة واعلموا أن الله مع المتقين. إنما النسيء زيادة في الكفر يضل به الذين كفروا يحلونه عاما ويحرمونه عاما ليواطئوا عدة ما حرم الله فيحلوا ما حرم الله، زين لهم سوء أعمالهم والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه بعد. With the name of Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Tonight is the 24th, so inshallah we'll be going on the 24th juz. I will be talking, inshallah, about a few verses from Surah Fussilat, which is the 41st chapter in the Quran. So in case you're following along, inshallah, check out the 41st chapter. Also for the translation, I'll be using Sahih International. So in case that's also important for you if you're following along, that's something else to check out. So a little bit of history before we jump right into the verses of Surah Fussilat. Surah Fussilat was revealed in Mecca. So it was in the early time when the Prophet ﷺ was calling the Meccans to believe in Islam. The Quran was revealed 6 years prior to the revelation of Surah Fussilat, that 41st chapter. The Fussilat means explained in clear detail. And so we'll talk about where that, like how that's used in the surah itself. It comes in the third ayah. So we'll see how Allah uses that word and what context it's used in. But what was going on in the 6th year in Mecca for the time of the Prophet ﷺ? What was actually happening? So a couple of things. We all know that in the early times of Islam, that the Muslims were being persecuted. They were the minority. The Prophet ﷺ came out and said that this is the message of Islam, that it calls people to worship one God, to leave injustices, stop burying your daughters alive, give food to the poor, those less fortunate. Your wealth has a right over you. Give it to those who need. And it was threatening the lifestyle of the Quraysh because it was calling them to major things such as leaving the idols that they used to worship, which is a big part of their trade and their commerce. And also it was telling them that there is an afterlife, that we will be brought back to Allah, that it's not just this life that we live and we die, but that there will be an afterlife, that we're brought back to Allah, that we will be held to account for everything that we do, and that hellfire is real, and that heaven is real, that Jannah and Jahannam are both real, and they're the realities that we will face after we die. This was contrary to what the Quraysh believed, which was that we die and that's it, we turn to dust, and nothing else happens after that. The Quraysh believed in a God. They believed in Allah. It's not that they did not believe in a God. They believed in a God, but they set up equals with him, andadan. They set up other equals with God. And so many of these surahs that were revealed in Mecca address this issue that the Quraysh had, which is that they believed in a God, but they didn't believe in an afterlife, and they set up partners with God. So what happened was the story behind this surah is very interesting. The Prophet ﷺ was one time, he was sitting in, by the Haram, and he was by himself. Then there was a group of the Quraysh leaders, and they, at this point in the 6th year of after the Prophet ﷺ started calling people to Islam, again, the people are being tortured and persecuted. They're the minority. They don't have power yet. However, at the 6th year, that's when we have some very powerful figures starting to accept Islam. Hamza is one of them. Hamza is a very strong person. He accepts Islam. And that's something that starts to shake the Quraysh. Now Islam went for something that was powerless, for just the weak and those people that didn't have as much influence in society, and it's starting to pick up. Even though it's the minority, it's still like now starting to pick up. And this was shortly before the conversion of Umar radiallahu anh. Some sources say it was like right after the conversion of Umar. So Islam is starting to slowly go strength. And the Qurayshi leaders, they noticed that. And so they want to do is they want to stop it. So they're thinking about what they could do. They've tried so many different number of things. Whenever the Quran is recited, they tried to speak up and to drown out the Quran. They would like as the Prophet ﷺ or other Muslims would recite the Quran, the other Quraysh that didn't believe and they wanted to stop it, what they would do is they would start reciting other poetry to distract whoever was listening. They would start talking about other amazing stories to make people not hear or listen to the Quran. They would try to drown it out. And actually, this surah talks about that specific strategy very specifically and addresses it. That they do that. So they would try to drown out the Quran. They would physically persecute the Muslims that accepted Islam. They were trying to barter with the Muslims to leave the following of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And finally, since none of that was working at this phase, they're seeing the strength growing. They come up with this strategy. Utbah, actually, one of the Quraysh chiefs that's sitting there in the group, he says, you know what? I'm going to go up to Muhammad and I'm going to try to offer him a deal, a proposal. And he tells the other Quraysh leaders that. And they said, okay, let's try it. So Utbah goes up to Muhammad. Again, he's alone, sitting by himself. And he goes and he sits with him and he says, you know, oh, Muhammad, what you're saying, these words that you're saying, he says words to this effect. He said, the words that you're saying, they're causing division with the families. You're telling them that the religion that they're following of their forefathers, where they worship other idols, is wrong and it's backwards. You're calling them to this religion that's splitting families apart, because the people that are becoming Muslim, their families are not accepting them, and it's causing division amongst the Meccans. So you need to stop. He's like, what is it that you're looking for? You know, if it's money, then we can give you money. Like, we can give you all the money that you want. If it's, you know, you want power, we can give you power. We'll follow whatever you say. If you want to be the king, the ruler, we'll make you the king. You can say whatever you want. Your rule will be the final rule for this town. And if you're sick, the last thing he said was, if you're sick and you have some problem, then we can get the best doctors to treat you with whatever sickness you have that's causing you to say these words. And he's referring to the Quran. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, are you finished? And he said, yes. And he said, okay, now it's my turn. And so now he responds. And his response goes like this. It starts with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Hamim. And this is what we're going to be talking about in this short session, inshallah. I'm going to try to go through as much of Fussilat as I can. I would really love to go through a lot of it because it's a very powerful, beautiful surah. But I don't know if I'll have all the time. Just trying to pull up my screen here. Okay, sorry about that. It took a little longer than I had hoped. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, in response to Utbah's proposal, he starts reciting. He says, now it's my turn. So he says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Hamim. Hamim. Just two letters. This is the beginning of Surah Fussilat. Just two letters. We see this many times in the Quran where it's just a couple of letters that are used. The translation is literally those letters. We don't know exactly what they mean. Scholars have different opinions about what they could mean, but no one knows for sure. But you know, it's as if though whenever Allah uses these letters, it's as if He's saying that these letters that you're hearing, these are the letters that make up this miracle, this book, this Quran. It's the same letters like the ABCs that you're familiar with. So you know already. These letters, you use them every day. I'm using those same letters to pull together these ayat in a way that transforms humanity and changes the world. And at the time, the Meccans, when they hear it, they're mesmerized by it. They think it's beautiful. For us today, 1400 years later, we see the effect of that, right? It's just letters, literally letters that Allah pulled together that transformed the entire world. It's like things, the whole world has changed because of that. So literally just letters that that Allah revealed. And continuing, Tanzilum min ar-Rahmanir Rahim. It's a revelation. So what is Hamim? Like, it's like as if this is telling you what is Hamim. Hamim is a revelation from the entirely merciful, the especially merciful, this Quran. It's a revelation from the entirely merciful, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the one that He's so merciful, and His mercy is being talked about here because this book is a mercy to all of mankind. It teaches us right from wrong. It teaches us how to live our life. It gives us hope when we're down. It teaches us how to deal with despair. It gives us the right way of living for our life, and it promises us of the afterlife and Jannah, inshallah, and a purpose behind the life that we have here. Something, a higher calling. This is all the things that we know today because of the Quran. It all comes from this revelation from Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. كتاب فصلت آياته قرآنا عربيا لقوم يعلمون. So a book whose verses have been detailed, an Arabic Quran for a people who know. So here's where we see that word, fussilat, that's the name of the chapter. So it's referring to the Quran. The Quran is a book whose verses, whose ayat have been detailed. It's very clear. It's not ambiguous. The Quran is very clear. It clearly tells you right from wrong. It clearly tells you, what's to come in the afterlife. It clearly tells you expectations for the human being. It tells us all the things that we need to know. Clarity, right? And also Allah mentions here Quran and Arabian. Again, you have to understand the audience. That's the language that they speak. They speak Arabic. They used to pride themselves at this time on who could speak the best Arabic, and that's why they would compete with each other to speak beautiful poetry and prose, and they would compete on who can use the words in the best way and in the most convincing way, and they used to debate with each other with their Arabic. And so in the midst of all this, the Quran was revealed, which trumped all of that. But here Allah is saying that it's in clear Arab, it's clear verses in the Arabic that you're speaking, for the people that know. بشيرا ونذيرا فأعرض أكثرهم فهم لا يسمعون. And I'll come back to the Arabic in a bit, inshallah, towards a later part of the surah, because some people may be thinking, well, it's Arabic for those who spoke Arabic at the time, but what about me who doesn't speak Arabic, right? So I'll come to that, inshallah. That's actually addressed in this surah also. But this Quran is a giver of good tidings and a warner. But most of them turn away, so they don't hear. So again, you have to understand the Prophet ﷺ is reciting these verses to Utbah. So this revelation came down on account as a response to Utbah. Notice that, as you're going to see in each of these verses that Allah has revealed on this occasion, it's not addressing the specific things that Utbah has offered, like the money, the kingship, the being a ruler, needing a doctor for being bewitched, which was an insult to the Prophet ﷺ, saying that he was actually crazy. It's not addressing any of that. It's like okay, going way above that. It's like that's not even deserving of a response. Here Allah is directly addressing them, like the Quraysh, like what they're doing, what ways that they're trying to target Islam, and they're trying to wipe out the light of Islam. All the different techniques that they're using are going to be addressed in the surah directly, and Allah is going to very clearly give good tidings and warnings, which is what he mentions here. But most of them turn away. Most people, and this is talking about the Quraysh, but by extension humanity and all of us, like today, what we see in the world today. Most people, when they hear these ayat, they hear these verses, they turn away. They don't want to hear it. They don't listen to it. So the first thing that's mentioned here is فَأَعْرَضَ أَكْثَرُهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ. Like, it's that they turned away first, most people. Then they don't hear. فَهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ. Like, it's because they turned away. So it's that they didn't want to hear to begin with. Like, this Quran is being revealed as a mercy to mankind. But most people, they just don't want to hear it. Like, they don't want to hear what it has to offer. They're happy with the way that they're living, and that's going to be addressed in the upcoming verses, where Allah continues, وَقَالُوا قُلُوبُنَا فِي أَكِنَّةٍ مِّمَّا تَدْعُونَا إِلَيْهِ وَفِي آذَانِنَا وَقْرٌ وَمِن بَيْنِنَا وَبَيْنِكَ حِجَابٌ فَاعْمَلْ إِنَّنَا عَامِلُونَ. And they say, our hearts are within coverings from that to which you invite us, and in our ears is deafness, and between us and you is a hijab, like a covering. So work, indeed, we are working. What is this referring to? This is actually words that the Quraysh said, like the leaders in Mecca and the people that didn't believe. This is what they would actually say. They would tell the Prophet ﷺ, you do whatever you're doing. Stop telling us to change the ways that we have, because our hearts, they have coverings from what you're inviting us to. Our ears are deaf from what you're telling us to. There's a hijab. There's like this, and hijab we know is like referring to the covering. But same word here. It's that word which is referring to that covering, that barrier that's between us, meaning the Quraysh. They're saying between us and you, Muhammad. So you do your thing, you work, and we're going to do our own thing. So this is the way that they responded. Then continuing, and before I get to the next verse, inshallah, we'll take a break. I think there's an ad coming up, inshallah, and I'll continue with this verse right after the ad.
Sheikh Abdul Hakim, a frequent speaker at MCMC, said something very profound. He said, "I've been to hundreds of masajid all over the country, and whenever I've seen people raise their hands in response to an appeal, there's always this big smile on their face." Subhanallah, just let that sink in. It's like, imagine if someone jumps in a swimming pool, it is 100% guaranteed that this person will get wet. Similarly, once we donate for the sake of Allah, it's like jumping in a pool filled with happiness. You are guaranteed to be drenched in happiness. Brothers and sisters, we are reaching out to you with an urgent appeal regarding MCMC operations. There has been no Jummah collection for almost 2 months now, and now with the masjid closed during Ramadan, it is indeed a huge financial burden. Ramadan is the time we collect funds that enable us to do hundreds of programs throughout the year. We collect funds to improve our security, to improve the overall facility, and to do outreach work throughout the year. Times are tough, and no doubt there are hundreds of good causes to donate, but upkeeping your home has to be the #1 priority. If MCMC is where you pray your daily prayers, if this is the place where you pray Jummah, Taraweeh, Eid, if this is the place where your kids learn about Allah and His Messenger, then this is your home. This is your primary responsibility to maintain your home. Please visit mcmcnj.org/themasjid and support and upkeep your home. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family and fill your heart with happiness.
All right, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala ba'd. With the name of Allah, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just to recap, we were talking about Surah Fussilat, which is chapter 41 in the Quran. This was when the 6th year of the prophethood, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Mecca, and he was sitting, and the Qurayshi leader saw that. Utbah came over to him to try to propose to him some deal to try to get him to stop reciting the Quran, to stop calling people to Islam. He offered him money, he offered him rulership and all of that. And in response, the Prophet ﷺ, it's revealed Surah Fussilat, and he recites that to them. And so I'm continuing on. Inshallah, I'll pull up my screen. We're on the, I believe, sixth verse, sixth ayah. So the Prophet ﷺ is instructed over here, and continuing with the sixth ayah. قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فاستقيموا إليه واستغفروه وويل للمشركين. Say, O Muhammad, so it's implied that it's Allah is ordering Muhammad to tell them that, where it's, say, I am only a man like you to whom it has been revealed that your God is but one God. So take a straight course to him and seek his forgiveness. And woe to those who associate others with Allah. So one thing that's really beautiful, and you think about like whether the question is he really a prophet or not? That's what the Quraysh are, they're saying that he's not a prophet. He can't be a prophet. Even today, same question applies. That people say, is he really a prophet, or is he not a prophet? Was he lying? SubhanAllah. No. So if you think about this ayah alone could be a proof for his prophethood. One, if he was a man that was trying to, why would he start with this message to tell the other people about this new way of life? Perhaps he's looking for power. Like if someone really wasn't truly genuine and they weren't really a prophet, they may be calling people to something because they want the power and they want the influence and people to listen to them, and they want to somehow have the description of divinity, like that there's something like a god or someone that should be followed. But here's very clear where the Prophet ﷺ is instructed to say, and he says, I'm only a man like you. It's just been revealed to him that his God is one God, and that's the message that he's calling to worship one God. And then not only that, is he calling them to worship only Allah, he's not calling to the worship of himself. That alone could be a proof of his prophethood, that it confirms what the other prophets before him were saying, the same exact message, which is not to worship him or them, but to worship the one God. And on top of that, he says, take a straight course to him and seek his forgiveness. SubhanAllah, like this really beautiful characteristic of Islam, it's everything is pointed back to Allah. There is no intermediary, not even the Prophet ﷺ himself. He's saying you yourself, you take your straight course to him and you seek his forgiveness. You ask him directly for him to forgive you. So he's not seeking anything out of it. Like, what does he as a man have to gain from calling the people to worship one God and to turn to him and to seek his forgiveness directly? If he was a fake, he would have asked them to go through him so that he can have that power or that some kind of position. So this alone could be a proof of the prophethood of the Prophet ﷺ. And then Allah continues, and woe to those who associate others with Allah. الذين لا يؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون. Those who do not give zakah, the charity, and the charity here is the charity that they give to purify themselves. They give it to those they believe that their wealth that they've been given is a test from Allah, something that they've been given by Allah, and it's something that they don't deserve. It's not something that they deserve. It's something that Allah gave to them because He gives His rizq to whoever He wills of His slaves. And so it's zakah is like the right of the wealth on those who have it. And so Allah is referring to these people that associate partners with Allah. There are those who do not give zakah, and along with that, in the hereafter, they disbelieve. So they don't believe in an afterlife, which is one of the things I was talking about before, which is characteristic of the Meccans. They don't believe in the afterlife. They're not interested in giving zakah because they don't see any benefit for it. There may be. And even if someone gives and they were giving out of their charity, they're not doing it for that broader purpose of pleasing Allah. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ. So Allah mentioned before that this book is glad tidings and warning. So this is the part of the book where we see Allah is offering glad tidings. Indeed, those who believe and do righteous deeds, for them is a reward uninterrupted. غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ. never ending, is not going to stop. This reward is nothing the likes of what we are familiar with, of what we could possibly conceive or imagine in our world today. Any kind of pleasure or happiness or joy or any kind of fun that we as human beings experience in our lives, it's not permanent. There's always ups and downs. There's, times that are good and fun, times that are difficult and tough, and times that you have to fight through. Here, Allah is saying that for those who believe and do righteous deeds, they will have a reward that is never ending. There is no ups and downs. It only goes up. It's not going to end. And this is one beautiful characteristic, very summarily, that Allah talks about in this ayah. Then continuing, قُلْ أَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَكْفُرُونَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَ الْأَرْضَ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ وَتَجْعَلُونَ لَهُ أَنْدَادًا ذَلِكَ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say, do you really disbelieve in him who created the earth in 2 days and attribute to him equals? That's the Lord of the worlds. So Allah is asking, like, the those who disbelieve, like, he's reminding them that the one that you're disbelieving in is the one that created the earth in 2 days. And specifically 2 days are mentioned here, talking about the creation of the earth. And it's not necessarily it's not the 2 days that we understand in our 24-hour world, like the way that the earth spins on its axis and goes around the sun. It's not that 2 days. It's a different days, because Allah mentioned days in other places in the Quran, and he often says that these are days that are different in measure. In one part of the Quran, for example, he mentions that a day is equal to 50,000 years. Another part he mentions is equal to 1,000 years. So a day is relative, right? We don't know exactly what exact time or measure is being referred to here, what exactly the amount is. But what we do know is that it's measured, right? There's a specific amount of time that Allah says that He created the earth in. It's in 2 days, and regardless, how can you disbelieve in Him and associate partners with Him? And here it's saying وَتَجْعَلُونَ لَهُ أَنْدَادًا, like you make with Him equals, أَنْدَادًا ذَلِكَ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ, like that's the Lord of the worlds. How could you possibly make equals with the Lord of the worlds that made everything? وَجَعَلَ فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ مِنْ فَوْقِهَا وَبَارَكَ فِيهَا وَقَدَّرَ فِيهَا أَقْوَاتَهَا فِي أَرْبَعَةِ أَيَّامٍ سَوَاءً لِلسَّائِلِينَ. And He placed on the earth firmly set mountains over its surface, and He blessed it and determined therein its creatures' sustenance in 4 days without distinction, for the information of those who ask. So here He's talking about how on the earth that He created in 2 days, He placed mountains. He set mountains firmly over its surface, and He determined that the sustenance, whatever we have on earth that makes the earth inhabitable for us, it didn't happen immediately. And actually, that's what we know too, right? Like the earth was, as in the beginning, it wasn't that creatures, just were able to live on it and they had the way, the ability to sustain themselves immediately. The earth's environment wasn't ready for that in the beginning. It took time, right? So here also Allah is mentioning that it took time, right? It took 4 days. Again, we don't know exactly what the 4-day measurement is referring to in reality, but it's 4 units of time that and Allah knows best exactly how long that is, but it's a measured amount of time. And in this time, it made it so that the earth is inhabitable for the way that we have it today. And continuing, Allah says, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ وهي دخان فقال لها وللأرض ائتنا طوعا أو كرها قالتا أتينا طائعين. Then He directed Himself to the heaven while it was smoke, and He said to it and to the earth, come into being willingly or by compulsion. They said, we have come willingly. So again, Allah is talking about, so He talked about the earth and the creation of the earth, and He's addressing the Quraysh and telling them, this is the Lord of the worlds that created these things in a measured amount of time. Then He said that He said to the earth, or to the heaven, when it was like a smoke, وَهِيَ دُخَانٌ فَقَالَ لَهَا وَلِلْأَرْضِ ائْتِنَا طَوْعًا أَوْ كَرْهًا. So it was still forming, right? The heaven was still forming. And so Allah said to it, either are you going to like come willingly, or are you going to do whatever I'm telling you willingly, or by force? Because there's no choice here, that the heaven or the earth have to not obey Allah. It's either they obey by themselves willingly, or Allah will force them to. And so they both said, and these great creations said, we have come willingly. So that's the other thing that's mentioned. A lot of times we see in the Quran, Allah personifies things that are inanimate, right? We don't see the heavens talking or the earth talking. We don't see, in other places in the Quran, for example, in Surah Ra'd, which is the 13th chapter, Allah talks about how everything in the heavens and the earth does sajda, prostrates, even the shadows. He said everything does prostration to God in the heavens and the earth, even their shadows do. So like we don't see that, but it's in a way that that Allah knows best. Like we don't understand it, but Allah does. So similarly here, they were instructed by Allah. They were asked to either come willingly or by compulsion. They said, we have come willingly. So continuing, then فقضاهن سبع سماوات في يومين وأوحى في كل سماء أمرها وزينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وحفظا ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. And he completed them as 7 heavens within 2 days, and inspired in each heaven its command. And we adorned the nearest heaven with lamps and as protection. That is the determination of the exalted in might, the knowing. So again, talking about a measured amount of time, 2 days, that he completed the 7 heavens. And each heaven had its command. As for the lowest heaven, its command was to be as a source of protection. It was also adorned with lamps, which we know as the stars. And this is the determination. ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. Like this is the determination. Taqdir, it's something, again, using the word that has the meaning of measurement. It's something that has a specific amount of time. When I was younger, I used to wonder like how and why like Allah mentions that the heavens and the earth was created or were created in 6 days when he could have done it immediately, right? It could have, if Allah willed, he could easily have done it immediately, right? But there's a specific reason why he set these appointed times, and we see here talked about in these ayat very specific units of time measured for each of the different parts of the creation of the heavens and the earth that are referred to here. So, and then he ends this whole passage by saying ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. Like this is the determination, like the measurement of the one that is exalted in might, the one that knows everything. So this is all by on purpose. It took this amount of time on purpose, not because Allah was restricted, but because he did this because of the measurement that's required for the heavens and the earth to be as we know them today. It's all because of the plan of Allah and a measure that's set. فإن أعرضوا فقل أنذرتكم صاعقة مثل صاعقة عاد وثمود. But if they turn away, then say, I have warned you of a thunderbolt, like the thunderbolt that struck Ad and Thamud. So if they turn away, which is what they were doing, Allah is threatening them. Allah is saying, if you do that, then I'm warning you of this punishment, this thunderbolt that happened to the people of Ad and Thamud. These nations are mentioned repeatedly in the Quran, and here they're mentioned again. When the Prophet ﷺ, again, we go back to the story, like where this is actually happening. This is the Prophet ﷺ reciting these ayat, these verses to Utbah, who came to offer him several things to get him to stop reciting. When the Prophet ﷺ recited this verse, many scholars say that Utbah actually, he got so afraid that he took his hands and he put them over the mouth of the Prophet ﷺ and told him to stop reciting. He heard this and he said, stop reciting, please stop, like have mercy on us, don't recite anymore. And the other Quraysh leaders, they're watching this whole thing transpire, they're seeing all this happen. And they're like, afterward, when Utbah goes back, he explains why he did that. They said, why did you, like in the middle, put your hands up like that? And they were almost like making fun of him, because they were like, you went there to offer a proposal, and you were, to Muhammad, and you're ending up putting your hands over his mouth because you're afraid of what he has to say. So it seems kind of strange, right? And he responded. He said, well, the reason why is because when Muhammad says stuff, they usually come true. And when he asks Allah to make things happen, they usually happen. And Utbah has seen this with Muhammad ﷺ over and over again. And with that fear, he put his hands over the mouth of the Prophet ﷺ to stop. And so he was afraid that this threat that Allah is mentioning in this surah will happen to the Quraysh, because in the next few ayat, and I only have 4 minutes left, unfortunately, I wish I could go through more of this. But you'll see in the next few ayat that Allah talks about how the Quraysh were mirroring the actions of Ad and Thamud. So he says, إِذْ جَاءَتْهُمْ الرُّسُلُ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا اللَّهَ قَالُوا لَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّنَا لَأَنزَلَ مَلَائِكَةً فَإِنَّا بِمَا أُرْسِلْتُمْ بِهِ كَافِرُونَ. So what happened with Ad and Thamud? When the messengers had come to them, before them and after them, saying, worship not except Allah, exactly as Muhammad ﷺ is telling the Quraysh and the Meccans, right? It's the same message that happened with the previous nations of Ad and Thamud. So the previous nations, the prophets came to them, they said the same thing, worship not except Allah. And they said, if our Lord had willed, he would have sent down angels. So indeed we, and that which you have been sent, are disbelievers. So the people of Ad and Thamud, they said the exact same thing that the Quraysh were saying to Muhammad ﷺ. As a matter of fact, after Utbah went back to the Quraysh to tell them, look, I tried to bring that proposal to Muhammad, he didn't want to listen. And he instead said these verses. After he said that, one of the men that were sitting there in that gathering, one of the Qurayshi leaders, he said, I will never believe in what Muhammad has to say. No matter how many times he say it, I will continue to oppose him until he brings down, he shows this book coming down with 4 angels. And even if I saw that with my own eyes, I would still disbelieve in what he has to offer. So it's crazy, like that they're saying exactly what the Ad and Thamud, the previous nations, said, right? And it's actually what people say today, right? They say like, oh, well, if God wants us to be guided, why don't he just send down this message with angels, right? And so this concept is talked about very frequently in the Quran. And actually, like, we see that happened right after this surah was revealed, right there in this very story with Utbah. And by the way, the man that said this, what's interesting in this story, since I only have a couple minutes, I'll probably end with this, inshallah. What's interesting in this story is after Muhammad ﷺ recited these ayat, after he recited it to them, and Utbah went back, Utbah's face was shook. You have to understand, in the beginning of the story, Utbah was very confident. He was with all the other Qurayshi leaders. Muhammad was alone, sitting in a corner. He said he had this bright idea. He was very hopeful of this bright idea. He's like, you know what? I think I'm gonna do it. I have this idea. I know what Muhammad is up to. He's really after money and all these other things. I think I know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna offer it to him, and we can get him to switch, to stop calling people to this message. So he went in with all that confidence. And all Muhammad ﷺ did was recite. All he did was recite Surah Fussilat. And in these ayahs that are clearly explaining in detail the condition of the Quraysh and how their actions are mirroring the actions of the previous nations of Ad and Thamud, and how those previous nations literally, like, they are like the shadows of Ad and Thamud. They're doing exactly what the previous nations did. And the Quran is threatening to do with the Quraysh and the Meccans as Allah did with Ad and Thamud. He destroyed them. He destroyed the previous nations. So Utbah, who has his whole posse, he has his whole group of people like the other Qurayshi leaders, he turns back and his face is completely changed. He looks shook. He goes back to the Qurayshi leaders completely shook. And they see that. They see his face is completely in a different state. And he's a different person than he was in the beginning. He's not the same confident person he was before. And so And they asked him, why are you like this? What happened, Utbah? Then he said, you should be careful with whatever Muhammad is saying, because what he's saying, it will come to pass. It will happen. And so he had so much surety. And by the way, Utbah never became Muslim. He never became Muslim. What's interesting though, like another interesting part of the story, a little tidbit before I end, is that the man that said, I won't believe even if I saw 4 angels, that man actually ended up becoming Muslim. So, and Allah guides whoever he wants, right? At the time, like that man's heart wasn't ready, but Allah guided his heart later on. So, you know, do you see the power of the Quran and how it transforms society? This is just one example, one situation that of how like powerful the Quran was and how much, you know, of a difference it was making at that time. And this is just the 6th year of the prophethood. There's so much more that that was about to come after that. So I'm going to stop here, inshallah. You know, may Allah accept from us this Ramadan, and may Allah bless us so that we benefit the most from the Quran, and we really think about its verses that have been clearly explained to us, and they are a mercy for all of us, all of mankind. May Allah guide us, our hearts back to Him, and guide us to do what the Prophet ﷺ was ordered to call us to, which is to turn back to Allah, to pursue a straight path back to Allah, and to seek His forgiveness. May Allah accept from us our fast and our worship in these last 10 nights, and forgive us this Ramadan. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. السلام عليكم.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. صلوا في بيوتكم. صلوا في بيوتكم.